Yeah, I send you an email also that if you have any doubts about the class and like about programming stuff, or if you are confused about the topic, you can contact me every night after 10 p.m. in Skype. Hopefully not so long time, but yeah, I will be there in Skype each day if you have any doubts. And yeah, feel free, because we are going to start to go a little bit faster, because I don't want to leave the whole thing just in like the theoretical part, but I want to make some sort of artistic more part, or like develop more ideas about the concept rather than the theory. And today we are gonna see something that I think is gonna expand your hopes for pure data, because I know some of you were like, yeah, pure data is complex, like, and we have to connect all these cables, and it's not so so fast and so on. So one thing that pure data is really cool about is communication. It's really, really easy to communicate with pure data, and I will explain this. And actually, the reason I use pure data a lot still is for this communication, rather than other things. I use it mostly for communication, and I will show you why. So here I have some text, but I will just tell you it's maybe too small to read now. But there are many ways to communicate with pure data. I don't know all of them, but the most popular ones, and because it's can we close the door? I think it's a little cold. Okay. Yeah, thanks. And one of them is MIDI protocol. How many of you have dealt with MIDI before, like at least have heard of MIDI? Okay. So yeah, MIDI is a very old protocol. It's just a way of transmitting information. That's what MIDI is. And MIDI stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface. Yes. Yes. And it's a very old protocol. They made it in the 70s because there were a lot of companies. They made their own protocols and their own hardware and everything their own. And so there was no way for a musician to actually control all these things or interface all these different keyboards and synthesizers and what else. So all of these big companies decided to make a standard protocol. And they presented this in the Audio Engineering Society convention in the 70s, yes? 1983. But I mean, it was before, it was already been developing. It's like, this is when they presented it. And so it's just a protocol, and it allows us to communicate not only with hardware, but with software. It has become the standard for many, many, many years, and all software that has to do with music uses MIDI. If you use Ableton Live, Cubase, any software uses MIDI. Even MIDI is integrated in your operating system, at least in OS X, in macOS. There is this MIDI settings in which you can configure the MIDI controller inside the Mac. There is also ALSA MIDI for Linux, and for Windows there has to be something similar. I don't remember, but there is something like this in Windows as well. And yeah, it's very simple. It's like basically it's just you have 8 bits of information, and what the MIDI message is, you just organize these 8 bits in such a way that can transmit different things such as control, node on, node off, and then it has 2 extra bits for start and end. So your program can parse it so in packages. I won't go into the complex part of it, but just know that you can generate your own MIDI messages. You can program your own MIDI messages, and that makes MIDI a versatile thing. But however, it has also a lot of limitations. One of them is that it allows you to communicate only 16 channels. I mean, but it's a lot, because in each channel you can have like 64 different voices, ports, and so for one port you can have 16 channels, and for each channel you can have 64 different lines. I don't remember how they call it, but so it's a lot. Still, maybe if you want to pass like video data through MIDI, which you could do, I wouldn't do it, because it's a lot. It would be a lot of effort. But it's very versatile and good for small things like notes in the piano, or like hits in drum or something like this. For small things, it's fine, and it's also very lightweight. You can make MIDI text also, and it will be a few bytes, probably 1-2 kilobytes for a whole piece or score. And yeah, it's very lightweight, because it's so old as well. I mean, back then they used to have maximum like 1 gigabyte or something like this. It was a lot already, so they made it very lightweight. And MIDI is also in your pure data. I will talk about Open Sound Control later, but let's just see. You can access the MIDI configurations in your pure data. Also, you can synchronize video with MIDI. I don't know, for those of you who have worked with video, there is always this problem that video is going at a different rate than audio. And you know, these things for technical, like in the very technical side, there is always this drifting between the video and audio. So what they developed is this just a synchronizing thing, a clock. They call it a clock. So you can have video and audio running at the same time, or synchronized basically. So one thing the people use MIDI as well is to synchronize video and audio. And actually, very professional productions and so on, they still use MIDI time code, which is called MTC, to synchronize video and audio. It's old, and I don't like it very much, and but still it's very effective to do this. And if you use MIDI, then it's absolutely compatible. Like really, all people, all systems can accept MIDI messages. So here in Pure Data, we can go to MIDI settings. And in my case, I have this. These are the built-in drivers for MIDI that come with the Mac. In the moment, I don't have any more, but if you are using Jack, you can. I think with Jack, you have another MIDI driver. I don't know exactly which one. I think it's. Let's check. Does anybody who uses Jack anyways, or just everybody's using Port Audio? Port Audio?
Yeah, for songs.
Okay, then.
Playing sounds sometimes, Jack.
Yeah, I maybe I can change it really fast and then show you. I think I don't remember if it can. Maybe it will break. Yeah, I think it breaks. But anyways, when you use Jack, I believe you have a different driver available, but I'm not so sure. You have to check it out. I mean, it's not that important really, but you have to configure that. Make sure that at least there is some name there. Like sometimes appears known. Yeah, I don't have Jack. Doesn't seem to be running. No, it's okay. Port Audio is fine. Yeah, make sure that you have something at least there, and then you can go to test audio and MIDI, and here you will have MIDI testing unit, in which you will just click here, and then you should receive this constant bang. It's just the testing unit. Don't worry, it's nothing complex. You don't have it. Then you have to check your MIDI input and output. Yeah, then it's that's the reason, because there is absolutely no driver there. I am unsure why is this. Like I installed the last version of Mac and the Yosemite, and I don't have any MIDI driver there for some reason. But this is the Mavericks version. How many of you have Mavericks? You have Yosemite? Yosemite?
This is the new version.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think it's because of the version. Yeah. Sadly, I think it's because of the version. It's not compatible with Pure Data anymore. You can try to use Jack. Then you have to install Jack. I can pass you the web page.
No, I haven't installed.
For those of you who have the last version of Mac, the Yosemite, you can try to install Jack and then use the driver there because I don't remember. So it's called Jack Audio, and then just go to downloads and there is for Linux, and just go for binaries and then the mixed. No, yeah, should be there, and also for Windows.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Yosemite, I don't know how to pronounce it. There is a problem with the MIDI. I don't have MIDI either in Yosemite, but other versions should have no problem. Okay, let's move this. Okay, so let's just assume that we have something there, and so we go back to test audio and MIDI, and we have our MIDI stream. Okay. So another thing about MIDI is that these big companies, somebody has, see later. Yeah, these big companies also agreed to make a general MIDI, which is a specification, because a lot of them in the synthesizers, they have different instruments. You know, you can specify piano sound, trumpet sound, drums. I don't know. They have different instruments, you know, the synthesizers that you can specify. So they decided, oh, we want to have that number 1 is always piano, and number 2 is always piano, or something like this. And we want to specify that from this to this value is only notes, from this to this value is only control, because in these synthesizers also you can have control messages such as the volume, you know, like the touch in sensitivity. You can have many other parameters, and they decided to make ranges for these parameters, and also like these numbers are gonna be these particular instruments. Actually, the only one I remember very clearly now is that the drums are actually 10. 10 is drums in general MIDI. But so they made this, and they also specify the notes in the piano. So they specify that I can put here the MIDI notes. MIDI notes. So they made it so that they specified which notes belong to which note in the well-tempered scale. So they specify these particular notes to these numbers, which makes sense. It's just going up. And they specify that you can have to 0 to 127. You can have more, but actually, because it makes sense only because of these notes, because people don't really use more than this in their usual day-to-day life. I mean, it's just you would hear it, but it's just too loud. Maybe we can try to do it with Pure Data right now.